Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. We start from Afghanistan, where government forces have killed 7 Taliban fighters in the country's eastern Ghazni province. In a statement, the Afghan army said the conflict happened in the Andar district's Nane village. It said 2 fighters were wounded in the clashes. Security forces said they will continue chasing the Taliban elsewhere in the restive province. The Taliban have not yet commented on the incident. The US has appreciated steps taken by Pakistan for the Afghan peace process. In a briefing in Washington, a US envoy for South Asian Affairs, Alice Wells, said Islamabad has important leverage to promote a lasting security and stability in Afghanistan. She said the meeting between President Donald Trump and Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan in Davos shows progress in bilateral ties. Wells said during her visit to Pakistan, she held extensive conversations with the country's leadership on bolstering economic partnership. She also praised Islamabad's efforts to meet its counter-terrorism financing obligations under the Financial Action Task Force. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says the world is now acknowledging the fascist ideology being imposed in occupied Kashmir and India. New Delhi has clamped down the valley for the last 174 days, leading to a severe humanitarian crisis. In his recent tweet, Khan said the anti-democratic policies of Prime Minister Narendra Modi are the biggest threat to the regional peace. He said 8 million Kashmiris and Muslims in India are suffering due to Modi's fascism. Khan shared an article published by the world-renowned publication The Economist on India's intolerance and how Modi is endangering the country's democracy. Thousands of protesters have come out on the streets in the Indian state of Goa against the Citizenship Amendment Act. The massive rally was the first demonstration backed and organized by the Goa Church. Demonstrators chanted anti-Modi slogans and made rousing speeches against the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party. The protesters demanded the state assembly to revoke the controversial act. The speakers said imposing new law will end in the second partition of India. In Myanmar, 2 women, one of whom was pregnant, have been killed and 7 others are wounded after the army shelled a Rohingya village in Rakhine State. The attack comes 2 days after the International Court of Justice ordered the country to protect the minority Muslim group. Anti-government politicians said shells fired by a nearby battalion hit the village of Kintong in the middle of the night. They claimed there was no fighting and the army simply fired artillery at the village. Almost 750,000 Rohingya Muslims fled to Bangladesh after a military massacre in 2017. Moving on to China, where the coronavirus death toll has risen to 41 with nearly 1,300 confirmed cases. Authorities have locked down over 13 cities, affecting 36 million people. Authorities in the city of Haikou said they will begin a 14-day medical observation of tourists coming from the Hubei province. They won't be allowed to leave their hotels where they will be monitored. China's government has also sent 450 military medical staff to Hubei. The virus, which first appeared at a market in the city of Wuhan, has now spread as far as France, Canada, Australia and Malaysia.
As you will be now aware, the first confirmed positive case has now been detected in Australia. A Chinese gentleman from Wuhan travelled to Melbourne last Sunday on a flight on the 19th, on flight CZ321 from Guangzhou, and he was well when he arrived but developed an illness during last week and is currently in a stable condition under isolation in a hospital in Melbourne.
Authorities in Beijing and other cities have also cancelled some celebrations and events to mark the Lunar New Year. Now moving on, Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam has declared an emergency over the coronavirus outbreak in the Asian financial hub. She announced a host of measures to limit the city's links with mainland China. Lam said all official visits to the mainland and official Lunar New Year celebrations would be scrapped immediately. She said schools will remain shut until February the 17th due to the Lunar New Year holidays. Flights and high-speed rail trips between Hong Kong and Wuhan will also be halted. 22 people have been killed after a 6.8 magnitude earthquake jolted eastern Turkey. Local authorities say over 100 people were injured. Officials say the quake's epicenter in the Elazig province at a depth of 6.7 kilometers. They say search and rescue operations have begun and the death toll could rise. Hundreds of residents are left homeless or with damaged homes. The Turkish Red Crescent has set up a crisis desk in Ankara. The earthquake was felt in neighboring provinces as well as in Syria, Iraq and Lebanon. World leaders including Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan and Canada's Premier Justin Trudeau have sent their condolences. 11 people have been killed after rebels shelled the northwestern Syrian city of Aleppo. The Russian Center for Reconciliation in Syria claims 30 others were wounded in the attacks. It said a detachment of 70 rebels with heavy machine guns attacked government positions. Russian officials say they attempted to drive soldiers away from the south of the Binyamin area. They said the attack was foiled with tanks and small arms fire, after which the insurgents retreated. Aleppo province is part of the de-escalation zone, where a deal brokered by Turkey and Russia ended hostilities earlier this month. In Iraq, security forces have raided Baghdad's main protest site at Tahrir Square, firing live rounds and tear gas at anti-government demonstrators. Clashes erupted as authorities began to remove barriers erected for months near the site. Health officials said 7 people were wounded in the skirmishes. Meanwhile, police in Basra raided a sit-in overnight and deployed forces in an attempt to clear the protest camp. Security forces arrested at least 16 agitators. 2 protesters were killed in yesterday's clashes. Unrest erupted in October last year with protests against the government's alleged corruption. In Somalia, 2 soldiers have been killed and 6 others wounded after a military vehicle was targeted in a roadside bombing in the Shabelle region. Meanwhile, 3 children died of hunger in Mogadishu's internally displaced persons camps. Police said the vehicle was traveling from Johar to Balad district. They added the wounded soldiers were airlifted to Balad district's hospital. No group has yet claimed the responsibility for the attack. In another development, hunger and poor housing conditions claimed the lives of 3 children living in the IDP camps. People living in the camps have sought help from the government and humanitarian agencies. Sudan's ruling council and a rebel group have signed a preliminary deal on political and security arrangements. Officials say the pact attempts to integrate anti-government militias into the army to produce a single national military. The deal grants special status to 2 regions that are now partly under rebel control. South Kordofan and the Blue Nile will be able to write their own laws. Government representatives signed the agreement with the People's Liberation Movement at a ceremony overseen by South Sudan's President Salva Kiir. The ruling council and the rebel groups restarted peace talks last October to end the years-long conflicts. A transitional government was put into place following the fall of veteran autocrat Omar al-Bashir last year. Bulgaria has expelled 2 Russian diplomats over spying allegations and gives them 48 hours to leave the Balkan country. Foreign Minister Ekaterina Zahareva said the government had received the letters from the prosecutors with the allegations. The Foreign Minister said they will undertake necessary actions and summon the Russian ambassador. The Russian embassy in Sofia said Moscow reserved the right to respond to Bulgaria for the expulsion of the 2 diplomats. Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson has signed the Brexit withdrawal agreement at Downing Street, London. The bill will take the UK out of the European Union on the 31st of January. It's a process that has taken 2 conservative governments under 2 different prime ministers and over a year to pass in the parliament. Johnson said finally delivering the result of the 2016 referendum was a great moment for the country. The Prime Minister said he hoped it will bring an end to years of arguments and division. Earlier, EU leaders signed the document in Brussels before it was transported to London by train. The European Parliament will vote on the agreement on 29th of January. More stories to follow right after a short break. Welcome back. War-struck Yemen is now struggling with the dengue outbreak. The disease has infected hundreds of children as the ongoing war impedes efforts to fight the world's fastest spreading virus. The World Health Organization has also shown concerns over the spread of the disease. More in this report.
In crowded hospitals, an unhygienic atmosphere only increases the problems faced by Yemen's children. Workers are struggling to clean an insect-filled pool of stagnant rainwater gathering in the battered port city of Hodeidah.
Dengue has been spreading fast these days, and when you have not 1, 2, 3, but 4 patients, where can you go? The private hospitals are very expensive and we can't afford it.
The World Health Organization says dengue is one of the world's top 10 public health threats.
Well, in 2019, there was more than 76,000 suspected cases of dengue across Yemen, with 271 associated deaths. When it comes to areas that are most affected, the governorate of Hodeidah has been seeing, for example, 70% of all alerts end of 2019. So this is the area that is the most affected, and at the same time, it's an area of active fighting.
An aid organization claims they are receiving reports of deaths on a daily basis from remote areas. Local authorities say they are struggling to control the outbreak of the disease.
The measures that were taken are to fill all the swamps in cooperation with the local authorities. Yesterday and the day before in Hodeidah, the cases have decreased in the countryside and we have filled up and closed the majority of the swamps.
There is no specific treatment and no widely available vaccine for dengue. Yemen's civil war, now in its 5th year, has killed over 100,000 people. The United Nations has described the country's situation as one of the world's worst humanitarian crises.
In China, Lunar New Year celebrations have been subdued by the coronavirus outbreak, but some have still managed to revel in the festivities. In Beijing, the 2020 Spring Festival Gala was staged to selected audience and broadcast globally. More in this report.
China is marking the new lunar year, one of the most important dates in its calendar. This is the time of the year dedicated to cultural celebrations and family reunions. But this year, it's different, as concerns grow about the coronavirus outbreak. However, a state media group in Beijing managed to host a festive gala to selected audiences. The Spring Gala Festival featured a mix of comedy acts, songs, acrobatic performances, and magic shows. Wearing colorful dresses, Chinese characters greeted New Year to all those watching the live broadcast at home. The performances also focused on the country's ongoing battle against the epidemic. Similar celebrations were held in Zhengzhou City in central China's Henan province and Greater Bay.
In Nicaragua, beekeeping is a highly lucrative alternative for small-scale farmers, but climate change is affecting their business. One local beekeeper has turned to raising queen bees to improve the quality and the production of his honey. More in this report.
Climate change is rapidly affecting daily life and habitats around the globe. In Nicaragua, beekeeping is considered one of the most profitable businesses. The country exports 442 tons of natural honey to the world. But beekeepers say the changing climate is bad for honey production.
We have an average production between 35 to 40 kilograms per beehive per year, but we have been affected by climate change and it has considerably decreased production, such as producing up to 15 kilograms per beehive per year.
Incluso hemos tenido producciones de hasta 15.
A local beekeeper, Santos Flores, has found that raising queen bees is the solution to the problem.
Y eso lo logramos.
Every year we gradually increase by 80 to 90% and we achieve this through beehive divisions. We have also activities such as natural queen breeding and artificial queen breeding.
Santos Flores says that working more technically is giving better production.
This allows us, as we have said before, to obtain a better production, because I no longer have to wait a month so that the queen bee can lay an egg. Here, I'll only have to wait 8 to 9 days, which is valuable time, relatively speaking.
Beekeepers believe the solution to their problem lies in innovation. As climate change progresses, those who remain dependent on traditional methods will be left behind.
And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.news.